This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and we're going to continue our deep dive into the subject of building a best-in-class risk management department. Now, today we're going to continue our focus on growing the value of the company. Today's an episode that, is near and dear to my heart. It's one that's probably caused me the most grief in my life, and because I dealt with this for a period of 7 years. Today's episode is titled Litigation and the Effect on Companies' Value. So, as you may have surmised, I dealt with a lawsuit that just was unbelievable. It was a business divorce is what I'll call it. So I kind of lived through some of these things. And I got to tell you, this topic today can devastate the value of your company. Can you imagine getting ready to sell your company only to find out maybe a year before, 2 years before, that suddenly you're being sued? I read a statistic which is pretty amazing, and it said that 75% of small business owners in America are worried they're going to become a target for frivolous or unfair lawsuits. Now, I read that on a blog. We're going to put links in the show notes to these things. I'm not exactly sure if that's an accurate statement, but I know personally I dealt with a lawsuit and it will wreak havoc on your business. So I want to deal with litigation today. And we first have to start out by what is litigation? I found one definition which says a lawsuit is an instance of a civil, so we're not dealing with criminal things, so a civil legal dispute between a plaintiff and a defendant. Litigation is the process that the lawsuit goes through after it has been formally filed. Litigation is very expensive. We know this. So litigation is the process after a lawsuit is filed, the process to come to a resolution, to either get a settlement, to get a order, a ruling, to get whatever the resolution is. So I went and I said, well, okay, if that's what litigation, why are businesses sued? The number one reason why businesses are sued is typically for a breach of contract, which happens to be the number one reason why businesses lose their defense in a lawsuit is a breach of contract. Another reason is whenever someone alters an attorney's strategy. So if you're on the early side of trying to protect your business and the lawyers did some good work for you and now you're going to go try to alter it, that could create a lawsuit because you operate outside the scope of your legal advisors. Or you misuse or abuse a legal privilege. You misuse or abuse of legal privilege. Those are the top reasons. So if we know what a lawsuit is and the reasons why people are sued, perhaps one question that I'm often read is, well, how long does a lawsuit last? Found a particular topic on this, and they said the average lawsuit could be as short as a year. So oftentimes they'll be in the 2-year range, but in the small business, they can last 5 or more years. The lawsuit I was in was almost 6 years long. I think it was almost 7 years from the time it started to the time it finished. I mean, it's crazy. The sheer amount of time. Actually, I think it was 5 years. Anyways, it's a long time. So what does the average lawsuit cost? According to the uscourts.gov, the average lawsuit for the period of time between 2006 to 2008 for the average company ranged from $621,000 to $2.9 million. $621,000. That's the average. So that means there's going to be a bell curve there, right? There's going to have some that fall outside the average. I have several clients that have had to take customers to small claims court for not getting paid, and those could cost $15,000. I know individuals that have gone through middle market companies where they're spending hundreds of thousands a year just on line item budget for lawsuits. Pretty amazing to me when you think about it. Another article I read called Practical Business Knowledge gave some insight, and they said that small businesses pay about $20 million a year out of their own pockets to defend tort liability costs, just lawsuits. I read another that the average small business earning $1 million per year spends $20,000 on lawsuits each year. This is all still in Practical Knowledge. They said since 1950s, tort costs or lawsuit costs have grown more than the GDP. And the CLIM analysis group estimates that perhaps as many as 52% of civil lawsuits target small businesses. 52%. Think about that. So by now, I hope I have your attention that lawsuits are long, they're expensive, they're frustrating, and they're top of mind for many business owners. Now, you may not be worried about a lawsuit. You may not be. Perhaps you should be. So I read an article, an interesting effect. It was called The Effect of Litigation Risk on Management Earnings Forecast. the effect of litigation risk on management earnings forecast. And it was a research report, a white paper report written back in 2009 by Mr. Kao of the University of Washington in Tacoma. And he stated, here I'm quoting this report. He stated, our results provide new insights into the relationship between litigation risk and management earnings forecast. Let me pause right there. Litigation risk, we know what it is, chance of being sued. Management earnings forecast, that's going to matter. Management earnings forecasts are going to matter when it comes time to sell your company. We use the term pro forma. It's not exactly interchangeable, but it's the same concept. The managers are trying to project out the future, what they're going to make. Okay? So Mr. Kao says, our results provide new insight into the relationship between litigation and management earning forecast. When faced with a litigation risk, they call it an ex-ante litigation risk, managers with bad news are more likely to issue earnings warning, and firms with good news don't see an effect. Let me break it down because I know I'm not giving you the full long exegesis on that particular white paper, but what they're saying is this. Companies that going into a lawsuit receive news that they're getting sued, if they have done their paperwork right and they have everything in order, they're not going to affect their management forecast. It's going to stay the same. But those who have things to be concerned about are going to start bringing their forecasts down. Okay. So when you think about trying to sell a company now, if we're looking at the pro forma, go back some many episodes ago, if we're looking at the pro forma and the buyer's coming in and can see a nice trend growing upwards, almost like climbing a mountain, you can see the forecast going upwards and it's constant, you're going to get a better multiple. You can get a better price for your business. Now, if you throw a lawsuit in there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right before you go to sell the company, then you could potentially devastate or greatly reduce the value of your company. Greatly reduce it.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So when it comes to maximizing the value of your company, one of the things you can do is try to make plans to avoid lawsuits. How do you avoid lawsuits? So I've been covering these in the past, 5, 6, 7 episodes. But I wanted to give you an article written by Patrick Frioli, F-R-A-I-O-L-E, Frioli. It actually appeared in the Entrepreneur magazine. He gave us a couple of different things. He said 5 things you can do that'll help minimize your risk of lawsuits. So the first one is focus on employment law. Now, we dealt with this. We dealt with the employment agreement, the handbooks. And he said this could include sexual harassment, discrimination, wrongful termination, all those things which your employment agreements and your handbooks will focus on. So you can focus on employment law, make sure you have the documents that we've talked about in the last few episodes secured. The second thing you can do is that you can protect your intellectual property. As we had in the last episode from Robbie Robertson, we were talked about IP, intellectual property, and we can protect that as business owners. Go back and listen to the episode if you didn't hear Robbie, one of the attorneys who's an IP attorney. That's something we need to protect. The other thing we can do is contract management. I've dealt deeply with contracts. What is a contract? What contract should you have? Friends, I can't tell you enough. You need a good attorney to make sure your contracts are in good working order. Again, in this article that appeared in Entrepreneur magazine, Patrick goes on and says the fourth thing you can do is make sure you're protected on your electronically stored information, or ESI is what the industry calls it. And this is what I call cybercrime. Basically, it's making sure that you have a good document retention policy, you have good privacy policies to prevent personal or private information from being hijacked. And finally, the fifth thing he says is avoid fraud. Avoid fraud. He says American businesses lose millions each year to employee fraud and even more in litigation resulting from fraudulent acts. Due to the high risk involved, internal controls reviewed by an attorney are crucial in order to prevent massive loss. So those goes back to our systems, our operating systems. So we've covered every point there that Patrick is going in detail throughout these episodes that we've covered. So if you want to try to greatly reduce your lawsuit, and listen to what we've been covering, this is how you drive the value of your company up. This is why each of those past episodes in this risk management is important. But you can do all that. You can still do all those things that we talked about, and you still can get sued. So what do you do? What do you do if you're served? I remember the day I got served. I knew it was coming. I knew it was because of the circumstances. But whenever that police officer pulled in and they served me, they had me sign a document and say, you've now been served. Whenever they did that, man, I could tell you it was like a pit in my stomach. What do you do if you've been served? The very first thing you do is you contact your attorney. You contact your attorney. Hopefully, you've had an attorney. Hopefully, you've heeded my words and got an attorney to review your contracts. You say, well, Justin, that's just so expensive. Friends, I cannot stress it enough. The three people in your life that you want to pay the most is your attorney, a great jam-up tax preparer, and a top-notch CFP, a certified financial planner. You want them to be the best paid professionals in your life because that means they're good at their job. So now you're going to reach out to your attorney. You just got served. You call your attorney. After you consult with your attorney, you may need to make an insurance claim. In our next episode, we're going to cover some of those insurances that you may use in an insurance claim, but you may make an insurance claim. Whenever you go through this, I remember my attorney, whenever I talked to him, he said, Justin, you can talk to your wife, you can talk to your priest or your pastor, and you can talk to your parents about what you're dealing with. That's it. And you're really not supposed to talk to your parents, but you can. So you want to maintain confidentiality. So if you get sued, you contact your attorney, you speak with your insurance company, and then you keep your mouth shut. And let me tell you, that's hard. It's hard to do whenever people are accusing you of wrongdoing. It's hard to do whenever you maybe are not being accused of wrongdoing and you just want to get something resolved. It's very hard to do. In the end, it's the best thing for you. Number 4 is there's going to be an investigation to the claim. Maybe it's you. Maybe your attorney's going to help you. Maybe the insurance company's going to help you. Then you're going to determine your liability. You know, just because you didn't do anything wrong doesn't mean it's not going to cost you. I dealt with a business owner years ago that had a particular item that there was nothing flawed in this item, but yet he ended up having to settle for half of the total job bill. So you got to determine your potential liability. And then your attorney's going to tell you, should you settle? Should you admit liability? Or should you try to defend the case? They're going to ask you, how do you respond? So friends, I hope you never deal with litigation. I hope you don't. Hope litigation is something that you just hear the nightmare stories of and never personally deal with it. On the blog post on financiallysimple.com, I'm going to put some extra links in there to some articles that I've read, and I've referenced a lot in this. I tried to stay away from my personal experiences because I can be a little jaded when it comes to civil litigation. I want to avoid it at all costs. I put together this episode here to tell you what it is. The next time we're going to talk about the insurances that you can use to help mitigate some of that risk. So take a look at financiallysimple.com. We'll have the blog up and running there. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. We get tons of people who sign up for the newsletter. I mean, dozens each week, it seems like. They're signed up for the newsletter. We get really good feedback saying, Justin, this writing is really good. I have attorneys and CPAs that text me that are nationally all around the country says, man, your newsletter is one of the only ones that I read because it's short, sweet, to the point, and I learned something from it. So sign up for the newsletter. You know, I say it every week. Life is hard. It is. Life is good, and life can be frustrating. Lawsuits will be the death of you, you think, if you don't do this right. Look, money in general, it doesn't have to be frustrating, hard. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Y'all go out and make it a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.